Matthew chapter 15. In this chapter, we can see Pharisees breaking God's commandment of loving neighbors just to keep their tradition. To them, their own tradition made by human was more important than keeping the commandment of God to love others. Specifically, in Matthew chapter 15, verses 1 through 9, Jesus addresses a tradition of hand washing before meals that the Pharisees followed at the time. This was not about hygiene. That was not the purpose, but a religious ritual they believed made them spiritually clean. Jesus wanted to show that what is in our hearts is more important than following extra rules that people make up. He taught that we should focus on obeying God's true commands rather than getting caught up in human traditions that might actually lead us away from what God really wants. Therefore, Jesus even said, they honor God with lips, but not hearts. Yes, it's most important to live out what we believe in God rather than just having a form of religion. Jesus travels to other areas to preach and teach the gospel. On his journey, a Canaanite woman was pleading for her daughter, who was possessed by a demon. This woman acknowledged the identity of Jesus as Messiah, as a Savior, as God the Son. Interestingly, Jesus initially ignored her, but she did not give up. Then Jesus said his mission was to the lost people of Israel, just the Jewish people, not the Gentiles. But the woman didn't give up, but kneeling down and pleading for help. However, Jesus even said it's not right to take children's bread for dogs. It sounds shocking that Jesus told her of dogs. But she replies without giving up. Even dogs eat crumbs from their master's table. Then Jesus was impressed by her faith, her persistent faith, and healed her daughter immediately. The Canaanite woman's persistence and recognition of Jesus' authority demonstrate great faith. We need this persistent faith. We do not believe in God just somewhat, to a certain point. No, we do believe in God completely. We submit ourselves completely and believe in Him. Lastly, we can see Jesus feeding the 4,000 people. Again, Jesus was feeding a huge number of people. Jesus had compassion for the crowd who had been with him for 3 days without food. This time, they had 7 loaves of bread and a few small fish. Jesus took them and asked people to sit. He gave thanks, broke bread and fish, and distributed them through disciples. Then all the people ate, and they were satisfied. Jesus satisfied their physical and spiritual needs again. Here, we have one thing to remember. Jesus gave thanks before distributing food to all the people yet. Verse 36 says, Jesus took the bread and the fish. After he gave thanks, he broke them into pieces and gave them to people. He gave thanks first to God the Father before he actually gave out to all the people. Jesus distrusted fully that God would make it happen. This is how we give thanks to God. We not only give thanks because we already received, we give thanks because we believe and trust His goodness. When we ask God something, let us ask with thanksgiving, not only because it's already given to us, but because we trust completely that He will provide us what we truly need. Let us trust in His goodness and give thanks to Him. This is chapter 15 of Matthew. Matthew chapter 16. In the first part of this chapter, we can see that people came to Jesus and they were seeking more miracles, looking for more miracles and signs. But Jesus knew their intentions were not pure. Jesus rebuked them, therefore, because they were so focused on earthly matters. They were very interested in interpreting the weather, but not interested in spiritual matters. This interaction between Jesus and people shows us the importance of a spiritual awakening. Starting from verse 5, we see the disciples still preoccupied with earthly concerns, earthly things, specifically worrying about bread, what to eat. Jesus used this moment to redirect their attention, emphasizing that physical bread was no longer the issue. They needed to focus on spiritual matters. The disciples, consumed by worldly concerns and spiritually unaware, they needed to open their spiritual eyes. Jesus warned them about the teachings of the Pharisees and Sadducees, comparing their first teachings to yeast. He advised against these religious leaders who neglected spiritual truth and instead emphasized their human traditions and worldly values. Then Jesus began speaking about his own death and resurrection. When Peter misunderstood this message, Jesus rebuked him because Peter was still interpreting Jesus' teaching through an earthly perspective. This interaction shows Jesus' teaching about taking up cross, self-denial, and sacrifice. He revealed a paradox of Christian faith. Those who dedicate themselves, their entire being, to the gospel will find true life. But those who sacrifice the gospel for themselves and their earthly value, they will not understand the heavenly value and truth. Likewise, this chapter encourages us to open our spiritual eyes and awaken spiritually. Christians are called to shift our focus from earthly concerns to spiritual values. This is transformation, and this transformation becomes possible when we trust God completely. What matters most is viewing this world through God's eyes. What would Jesus do? How would Jesus see the world? We need to follow how Jesus would see this world. We need to see this world through God's eyes and through his heart. Actually, the church is meant to be a gathering of people who see this world from God's perspective. I pray that all of us grow in spiritual awareness day by day and spread out spiritual value to this world. In this way, more people can understand the heart of God. More people can experience his presence and power, and they can follow his will. Let us be the channel of a blessing by sharing this gospel to others. This is chapter 16 of Matthew.